It is SummerSlam time, and quite frankly, you know what that means? Hey, your boy is gonna be coming at you with another top 10 list. Although this time around, we aren't going to do the simple old best matches of the past decade for SummerSlam like I've done for the past couple of pay-per-views here and there, but instead I wanted to go ahead and give a little bit of a twist. You see, I've been a fan of professional wrestling since 2013, and one of the first pay-per-views I got to witness, or at the very least that happened during my fandomhood, was SummerSlam 2013, and I wanted to go over every single SummerSlam for the past decade, 2013 to 2023, and go over what are the most important matches of each and every single show. But hey, if you like wrestling content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Keep your boy over on the Twitch because we are going to be doing a 24-hour stream heading into SummerSlam, and quite frankly, your boy also has a bit of a community wrestling series, so feel free to peep your boy over there, because who knows, maybe you'll join us with the community series known as WKW. We'd love to have more of y'all a part of it. But alas, let's get right into the video. To start us off, and I should also let you know this at the moment, this list isn't exactly for the best matches of each SummerSlam card, but for those that have held the most importance leading up to the show and following the show. That being said, Daniel Bryan versus John Cena was a bit of a solidification that Daniel Bryan was the top guy in WWE, getting a surprising clean victory over John Cena, even debuting the running knee in this match. For those that don't recall, Daniel Bryan at this point just had the yes lock as his finisher. Although this is a little bit of cheating, because what happened immediately after this match is what kind of led to things picking up even more so for Daniel Bryan. This was Daniel Bryan's first ever WWE Championship victory, and he would get cashed in on shortly after by Randy Orton, which led to the beginning of the Authority versus Daniel Bryan feud. And in turn, this here was the starting point, unless you want to count Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan, which technically that counts as a bit of a prequel to this, I guess, to put in better words. But ultimately, this would go on and be the launching point for Daniel Bryan and the amazing 2013 into 2014 that you would have, the first of a couple of WWE Championship runs up until his WrestleMania victory against Triple H and then against Randy Orton and Batista. The Yes Movement ran wild, and this was one of the integral matches that led to that whole ordeal. But moving on from one John Cena match to another, we have 2014, 10 years ago, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. This is effectively the death of Super Cena. This is the final time we would see that Super Cena character being absolutely eviscerated, eradicated. It was 16 suplexes, 2 F5s. That man, John Cena, couldn't do nothing against Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was coming off of his victory against The Undertaker earlier that year at WrestleMania, so John Cena thought, hey, what a best case scenario to make Brock Lesnar look even more like a beast than having him squash me. And my god, not only did it work, but again, this was the final time Super Cena would be a thing. Following this match, John Cena would start having more and more losses as the years would go by. He would stop being this indestructible, unstoppable, Superman-esque character he was in years prior. And ultimately, this would mark that turning point. On top of that, for Brock Lesnar, it was his, I believe, first world title back in WWE after his 2012 return. And he'd become that unstoppable beast for years to come, starting that championship reign that wouldn't end until WrestleMania the following year, which he lost to Seth freaking Rollins, which had to cash in to take that title from him. This did a decent bit for Brock Lesnar, and this was a turning point in John Cena's career. No other match comes as close to this one when it comes to importance. Now moving on to the next year of 2015, I had to go ahead and ask a couple of y'all over in Discord and Twitter for some of y'all's pick, because I was going back and forth between Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker and would have ultimately won We'll get to him shortly. Seth Rollins versus John Cena. Yet again, the third time in a row we are seeing John Cena's name. This effectively with, just like how I said, with Daniel Bryan getting further solidified as the top guy, would do the same thing for Seth Rollins. He had cashed in that Money in the Bank earlier to take the title off of Brock Lesnar, the man that took the title off of John Cena. And in turn, he would go ahead and end the historic reign of John Cena with the United States title. The United States title reign that immediately comes to mind for the majority of wrestling fans when you talk about that US title. You think of John Cena. It came to an end for the second reign, the reign that most people recall. We don't talk about how the third one ended, but nevertheless, Seth Rollins walked out with a victory, and while the ending was kinda meh, with John Cone helping Seth get the victory, this still was one hell of a historical moment for Seth freaking Rollins, getting a big victory over John Cena and becoming the first individual to hold both the United States title and the World Championship, aka WWE Championship, at the exact same time. Yet another chapter in the Hall of Fame career of Seth freaking Rollins. But you know what? Speaking of Seth, and I did kind of let it slip earlier, Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. Another SummerSlam where I was kind of going back and forth for what should be here. And I'll be honest, I was kind of torn because I was so close to saying AJ Styles versus John Cena. But when it comes to this match here, I can't say in good faith that AJ versus Cena at SummerSlam was a more important bout. This was the debut of the Universal Championship, a title of a lot of highs and a lot of lows. It all started here, and while the crowd kind of messied up this match with a bit of backlash due to the title looking relatively hideous, being the first clone championship, excluding the women's title. Quite frankly, these two tore the house down, although unfortunately it did end with Finn Balor getting injured. Although they would also play into that when it came to their rematch years down the line. And this also was a bit of a derailment for Finn Balor's career. That being said, following this would also be the catapulting moment for Kevin Owens. Because after Finn got injured from this match here, this led to Kevin Owens getting the title, Seth turning face, and the, again, Universal title being a thing for the better and for the worse. Now going into 2017, the Fatal 4-Way match. I'll be real, couldn't really think of too many matches on this card that was that greatly important, but one of the best matches out of Brock Lesnar's very long title reign came out of this chaotic bout here between Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, and Roman Reigns, three individuals that you wouldn't have been surprised to see take that title off of Lesnar. And while ultimately the Beast in the end would walk out still your undisputed Universal Champion, and it did eventually lead to the story between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar getting picked back up for better or for worse, especially at this point in time. Out of every single match on the 2017 card, I'd argue this is probably the most important. Although you could say in the comments down below any other matches that you feel to be a bit more higher in importance. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Moving into 2018, and without a shadow of a doubt, it was the triple threat match between Carmella versus Charlotte versus Becky Lynch, where Charlotte Flair would get the women's title, and it would lead to the beginning of Becky Lynch, who was thought to be Becky Lynch turning heel, although at the same time, people weren't booing Becky. If anything, they were going to be booing Charlotte Flair heavily. So they had to go ahead and pivot, turn Becky into this anti-hero-esque character, this female-like Stone Cold wrestler, and just like that, the beginning of the man was seen. It gave Becky Lynch a whole lot of edge that she was desperately, direly needing, because at this point she was kind of just the buddy of Charlotte Flair. This holds so much importance, and while people will go ahead and credit the whole Nia Jax Becky Lynch situation where Nia busted open Becky's nose, that would not have happened if it wasn't for this match, if it wasn't for what followed with Becky and what WWE tried to do, turning her heel, ultimately giving her that ruthless edge. And 2 weeks later, the man was fully in motion. saving the career of Becky Lynch and turning her to the path of a first ballot Hall of Famer one day. 2019, I'd have to go with The Fiend versus Finn Balor. One of the best, most hyped up debuts, one of the best re-debuts for a wrestler I've ever seen in the form of The Fiend. And while this was short, sweet, and to the point, this helped establish a whole lot of hype around the new character of Bray Wyatt. And while this would have its own fair share of ups and downs, The Fiend holds a special place in my heart, and quite frankly, I'd be foolish not to put this one here. Going into 2020, speaking of The Fiend, I had to go for The Fiend versus Braun Strowman, and I had to kind of cheat a little bit here, because following the match is what would be the truly most important thing: the return and heel turn of Roman Reigns, leading us to the beginning of the historical, at this point, 4 or 5 year storyline of Roman Reigns. Funny enough, 4 years later, we're about to potentially witness the return of Roman Reigns and him turning face at Summerslam. But going back to 2020, when Roman Reigns made that shocking, surprising return, targeting The Fiend, targeting Braun Strowman, this led to the revival, resurrection of Roman Reigns' career, and one of the most iconic stories in the history of WWE, and the longest running at that. And hey, within a week, Roman was champion again. Speaking of, I get used to hearing Roman's name, because we're moving on to 2021 was Roman Reigns versus John Cena. Now, while this match probably should have had some more heated segments back and forth akin to their 2017 feud, this still was very important bout here for Roman Reigns. And while he's already had a victory over John Cena at this point, for the Tribal Chief character to be able to overcome John Cena, not allowing him to get that 3 seconds to try and capitalize, that 3 seconds to cost him that title, Roman Reigns instead will continue his, at this point, year-long reign. And following it is when we would have the return of Brock Lesnar. Say what you will about him nowadays, I ain't gonna argue. Quite frankly, this would serve to be the closing of one chapter for the character, the career of Roman Reigns, and the start of another, with the return of Brock Lesnar, leading into another major story, the whole saga of whether or not Paul Heyman could be trusted and all this sort of stuff, which in turn leads to 2022, one of the most iconic matches of SummerSlam, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, last man standing. And at this point, Roman Reigns has gotten 2 victories over Brock Lesnar. He got a victory over him in Saudi Arabia and another at WrestleMania. At this point, it's kind of been firmly set that Paul Heyman is loyal to the bloodline at the side of Roman Reigns, having turned on the beast at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. This was for it all, for the World and Universal Championship, and quite frankly, this was one of the most chaotic matches of SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar bringing a tractor-trailer down to the ring. You had the interferences of the Usos, the bloodline in general. You had the interferences of Austin Theory, of Tyson Fury, knocking out Austin Theory. You had the ring getting launched in the air by the tractor-trailer. You had major spot after major spot. Paul Heyman getting hit with an F5, ultimately being the final match we would have between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, and arguably their best match against each other in their massive catalog of matches, of which I would say like 2, 3 of them were worth watching, and this most certainly was one of them. And yet again, this would be the closing, the end point for the historical rivalry between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, with the head of the table, your Tribal Chief, walking out victorious yet again. And then 2023, and this is also why I add that disclaimer at the beginning of the video, why I say that the most important match doesn't necessarily have to be the best match. You have Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. This here further solidified Jey Uso's status as main event Jey Uso. And while this match, the whole stipulation kind of fell flat, because the whole point of this match was to evade having anybody interfere, and then Solo interfered anyways. Besides that, this would lead to the questionable heel turn of Jimmy Uso turning on Jay, which would eventually lead to their WrestleMania match. Again, doesn't mean that if it's good or bad, doesn't mean that it's any less important, but quite frankly, one of the last bits for the original Bloodline Civil War story, which is probably about to pick up again at this year's SummerSlam. So hey, join your boy over on Twitch. You've been seeing that QR code in the corner. Up over here, you see your boy looking at it. Go ahead and scan it. Peep your boy, or even check the description below if you can't scan it, because we are going to be doing a 24-hour stream Friday night heading into Saturday until the end of SummerSlam. So join your boys as we get ready to witness the revival, the second section for the Civil War Bloodline versus Bloodline story. And that was every single SummerSlam and their most important matches as well. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What matches would you have put into this list instead? Do you agree with me or do you disagree? And again, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Beat your boy on the socials in the description below. And yeah, see ya.